Why did the old man keep staring at her across the street? Rebecca Callahan bent over the exposed engine of her battered Jeep Wrangler in the gravel driveway of her modest rental home outside Fort Bragg. To any neighbor passing by, she looked like a simple woman with a stubborn streak, someone who insisted on fixing her own Jeep rather than paying a mechanic. But the man on the porch across the way, a retired sergeant whose eyes had seen too much to ignore detail, noticed things others would miss. Her movements weren't casual, they were deliberate. Every wrench twist had rhythm, every pause had calculation. She scanned her surroundings before leaning back into the engine. She always parked facing outward, ready for a quick escape. And that small bulge at her ankle, not an injury, not a brace, something harder. A weapon. Most telling was her stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, weight balanced on the balls of her feet. The stance of someone who had spent years in uniform, someone who hadn't quite forgotten the battlefield. Inside, Rebecca told herself she was blending in. Outside, the world told a different story. The next morning, the Fort Bragg Post Exchange, the PX, as every soldier called it, was already buzzing when she arrived. Soldiers in uniform shuffled through aisles of gear. Families with children moved toward the food court. Civilian employees clocked in, chatting casually. Rebecca pulled into the employee lot, badge clipped neatly to her shirt. She still felt her pulse quicken at the security checkpoint, though the guard barely glanced at her ID. That in itself made her uneasy. Vulnerabilities always did. "Morning, Becky." The voice was gravelly but carried warmth. Master Sergeant Frank Donovan, retired. He managed the PX with the same precision he'd once brought to a Special Forces team. At 62, his hair was silver, his face weathered, but his frame was still solid. "Morning, Frank," Rebecca replied, keeping her voice light. She poured coffee from the break room pot, more for the illusion of routine than for caffeine. Frank leaned against the counter, studying her. "Heard you got that old Jeep running again. News travels fast." Rebecca smirked. "Small community. Bill Thompson said you fixed it like you'd been working on military vehicles your whole life." Rebecca sipped her coffee, buying a second. "My dad believed in teaching self-sufficiency." Frank nodded but didn't look convinced. He watched her limp as she walked away. She worked hard to conceal it, but to trained eyes it was there. Not a hiking accident, as her file claimed. A combat wound. He'd bet his pension on it. In the receiving bay at the back of the PX, deliveries came in steady rhythm. Boxes, pallets, manifests, nothing unusual, until one delivery made her skin prickle. The large metal door rolled up, and instead of 2 men, 4 stepped off the truck. They wore standard shipping uniforms, but their posture gave them away. They moved like men who had carried rifles, former military. The leader was muscular, buzz-cut, eyes too cold for ordinary work. He surveyed the area with predatory interest. "Becky, this is the special order for tactical," Frank called. "Sean Mercer's crew will handle this one." Rebecca approached with a clipboard, polite indifference on her face. Inside, her instincts screamed. "You're new," Mercer said, voice thick with Texas drawl. 3 months, she answered, holding out the clipboard. "Need your signature." Mercer signed, eyes never leaving her. "You look familiar, we met before." "I don't think so," she met his stare evenly. "I'd remember." One of Mercer's men, younger, scar along his jawline, froze when their eyes met, just for a second. Recognition. Then he looked away quickly. Frank stepped forward, cutting the moment. "Secure storage, 30 minutes, military regs." Later, Frank pulled her aside into his office, a space lined with photos of old Special Forces teams. "Stay away from Mercer and his crew," he said bluntly. Rebecca feigned mild surprise. "Problem with them?" Mercer was Force Recon. Discharged under circumstances the Corps won't discuss. Now works for Axiom Security, one of those contractors that took the jobs no one else wanted after Afghanistan. Rebecca kept her face neutral, though alarms rang in her head. Axiom Security had a reputation: black contracts, dirty operations. They handle sensitive deliveries, she asked. That's above your pay grade, Becky. Frank's eyes narrowed. But I don't like coincidences, and them showing up the same time you did, that makes me nervous. That night Rebecca drove home with her heart heavier than usual. At the door she was greeted by Ghost, her Belgian Malinois, missing a leg but alert as ever. He wagged once, then sat at attention, scarred eyes fixed on her face. He was the only living being who knew who she really was. In the bathroom, Rebecca peeled out her contacts, revealing eyes not blue but hazel. She wiped away subtle makeup that altered the shape of her face. The mirror reflected not Rebecca Callahan, inventory specialist, but Lieutenant Rebecca Winters, Delta Intelligence, declared dead in Syria 3 years ago. She pulled a satellite phone from its hidden compartment, thumbed a message: package potentially compromised. Advise. The reply came quick: continue mission, support unavailable, maintain cover. She stared at the words, same as always, alone. She glanced at Ghost, the dog who had bled with her in Syria, who had lost his leg in the same explosion that had almost ended her life. She whispered to him, though she wasn't sure if it was for his comfort or her own. We're still here, and we've still got work to do. The next morning she arrived early. Frank was already in the security office, replaying footage. Early bird, he said. Couldn't sleep. He pointed at the monitor, Mercer's team unloading boxes. Notice anything? Rebecca studied the footage. Their movements, the spacing, the way they covered angles without realizing it. They moved like a unit, formation even when carrying boxes. Good eye, Frank's gaze sharpened. The kid with the scar, Ryan Cooper, he kept staring at you yesterday. Army intelligence before Axiom, stationed in Syria, same time as you. The confirmation hit like a blow. He had known her face, known her mission, known she was supposed to be dead. Frank watched her reaction silent. She forced her voice steady. Maybe I remind him of someone. Maybe, Frank leaned closer. But I'll tell you what worries me. Axiom doesn't deliver office supplies, and whatever's happening started 3 months ago, same time you showed up. Rebecca felt her pulse in her throat. Later that day, she checked the lot. Cooper leaned against her Jeep, posture casual but eyes locked on her, waiting. Frank came to her side. I'll walk you out. Cooper straightened as they approached. Master Sergeant Donovan. He gave a slight nod. Just need a word with Miss Callahan. Whatever you have to say, you can say with me here, Frank replied firmly. Cooper's eyes slid to Rebecca. He spoke softly. Isn't that right, Lieutenant Winters? The name dropped between them like a grenade. Rebecca kept her face calm, though inside everything tilted. You've got me confused, she said smoothly. My name is Callahan. Cooper smiled faintly. You're good. Hair different, contacts, even how you carry yourself, but I never forget a face, especially not one I was briefed on for months. You're supposed to be dead, impressive trick. Frank's voice cut in sharp. Son, you should walk away now. But Cooper leaned closer, voice low, urgent. It's about Shepard, and what really happened in Syria. Rebecca's breath caught, but her face betrayed nothing. Frank shifted his weight, ready. Cooper whispered, you have 30 seconds. Shepard's cleaning house. Everyone from Syria dead or working for him. I chose option 2, but I've been gathering evidence. He's been looking for you, Winters, for years. Rebecca studied him. Enemy, ally, or trap? Cooper's eyes were desperate. Tomorrow, Lighthouse Coffee, 700, come alone, or you'll never know the truth. He stepped back, disappearing between cars before she could answer. Frank turned to her quietly. Want to tell me what that was? Rebecca exhaled slowly. Not here. She looked him in the eye, the decision already made. Follow me home. Why did Frank still look at her like he already knew? The drive back to her rental was quiet, tense. Rebecca's eyes flicked to the mirrors again and again. No tails, no headlights lingering too long, but Ghost met them at the door with his hackles up, and that told her all she needed to know. Something had shifted. The world outside had closed in just a little tighter. Inside, she went through motions that were second nature, locking doors, drawing curtains, checking windows. She moved with the efficiency of a soldier setting a perimeter. Frank watched her, arms folded, silent but observant. His silence was heavier than questions. Finally, she faced him in the sparse living room. "You should sit down." He stayed standing. "I think I'll stay on my feet, Lieutenant Winters." Her chest tightened at the name. She gave him a sad smile. "So you knew." "Suspected," Frank corrected. "Your file was too clean, too perfect, and training like yours doesn't vanish. I've seen too many ghosts try to walk as civilians." Rebecca sank into a chair, exhaustion pulling at her bones. "Then you know I need to ask, can I trust you?" "That works both ways," Frank said. His voice carried the weight of someone who had lived too long by the creed of loyalty and betrayal. "But I'm still here, are I?" She studied him, then nodded once. "My name is Lieutenant Rebecca Winters. I was part of a classified intelligence unit attached to Delta Force. 3 years ago, my team was sent into Syria to extract an informant. We were ambushed. Someone leaked everything, our position, our gear, even our names. They all died. I wasn't supposed to survive." Frank's expression hardened. "And you think Shepard was the leak?" "I don't think," she said quietly. "I know he authorized the mission. He had every detail, and he's been climbing ranks ever since. 3 months ago, we intercepted chatter. He's been selling classified technology through Axiom. That's why I came here. The PX is his pipeline, but now," she hesitated, "Cooper recognized me, which means my cover is gone." Frank paced slowly, processing. "If Cooper wanted you exposed, he would have done it already. He came to you. That suggests he might be telling the truth." "Or he's setting a trap," Rebecca said. They fell into silence, the air heavy with unspoken stakes. Finally, Rebecca looked at him. "You're not what you seem either." Frank gave the ghost of a smile. "None of us are." At dawn, Rebecca checked her weapons. A compact Sig Sauer at her ankle, a ceramic knife at her back. She hesitated with the knife, her fingers tracing initials etched into the handle, J.R. Jessica Ramirez. Her team's weapons specialist. Dead in Syria. Frank had taken watch the entire night, alert despite the hours. He looked at her without needing words. "What's the plan for the meeting?" he asked. "I go in first. You follow 5 minutes later. Good visibility. If I signal trouble," she tucked hair behind her right ear, demonstrating. "You intervene. If I don't come out in 20, you assume it's a trap." Frank frowned, and then you call this number." She handed him a slip of paper. "Say, Winterborn Protocol activated. They'll handle extraction." He pocketed it without looking. "That won't be necessary. If it's a trap, I'll get you out myself." Rebecca gave him a faint smile. "I appreciate the confidence, but if Shepard is involved, this is bigger than us." "I won't be alone," Frank said. "I made calls last night. 3 friends, former Special Forces, on standby." She studied him. Retired PX manager, loyal and watchful, but now she saw the other side. The man who had spent decades in counterintelligence. The man who had never truly retired. The Lighthouse coffee shop sat just outside the Fort Bragg gates. By 6:45 a.m., it was full of uniforms and caffeine. Rebecca parked across the street, heart steady but tight. Frank circled around to the side entrance. Inside, the air smelled of roasted beans and fresh pastries. She spotted him immediately, Ryan Cooper, scar catching the morning light, seated in the corner back to the wall. A laptop closed in front of him. His eyes tracked the door. "You came," he said, genuine surprise in his voice. "I'm here for answers," Rebecca replied, taking the seat across but leaving her body angled for a quick exit. "You said Shepard's cleaning house. Prove it." Cooper opened the laptop and turned the screen toward her. Documents, shipment manifests, financial transfers, encrypted communications. These are PX manifests, Rebecca murmured. She scanned them quickly. Standard shipments, but the weights didn't match. Some pallets recorded as light supplies were much heavier than the inventory allowed. Smuggling, hidden cargo. Financials, Cooper whispered, offshore accounts, shell companies, payments routed to Axiom executives. And then the most damning, encrypted messages. Shepard's signature, international contacts, phrases like special package and proprietary technology. "How did you get this?" she asked. "I became valuable," Cooper said bitterly. "After Syria, Shepard approached me, offered me double my military pay. I joined Axiom. I needed to know if he was behind the ambush." Rebecca's head snapped up. "Were you there when my team was hit?" Cooper shook his head. "No, I was at the operations center. I watched it unravel, too fast, too precise. The enemy knew your movements, your equipment, even your call signs. Afterwards, Shepard controlled the after-action reports. When I asked questions, I was transferred out within days." Rebecca's chest tightened. It aligned with everything she had pieced together. "Why now?" she pressed. "Why risk yourself to tell me this?" Cooper leaned forward, urgency in his eyes. "Because they're moving something bigger. The PX shipments were just rehearsal. Next week, they're sending advanced surveillance equipment. Systems that can hack military networks, track operators in the field. It's the same technology that found your team in Syria, only worse." The words settled cold in her chest. "Proof, motive, stakes." "I need that evidence," she said. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket, inserted it, copied files. "Encrypted, passwords Damascus 2022, your call sign, the year they died." His voice softened. "Something else you should know, Mercer suspects who you are. He's been digging." Rebecca felt the world tilt again. How long before? The cafe door opened. Mercer walked in with two of his men. Rebecca's hand brushed her concealed weapon, but Cooper gave a subtle shake of his head. Mercer's smile was professional, almost friendly. "Ryan, fancy meeting you here." He clapped a heavy hand on Cooper's shoulder. "And Miss Callahan too, small world." Rebecca forced confusion onto her face. "We only met yesterday during your delivery." "Is that right?" Mercer's eyes gleamed with disbelief. He turned to Cooper. "Colonel Shepard was asking about you. You missed a briefing." Cooper's jaw tightened. "Lost track of time, I'll report in." "You do that," Mercer said smoothly. He turned to Rebecca. "Always a pleasure, Miss Callahan. I'm sure we'll see more of each other soon." As he walked out with his men, Rebecca caught sight of Frank slipping in through the side entrance, his eyes following Mercer before landing on her. She gave him the smallest nod. "I'm okay." Cooper snapped his laptop shut, movements hurried. "You need to go. Now, Mercer will tell Shepard. If he suspects I gave you anything, I'm dead." "Then come with me," Rebecca urged. "We can protect you." Cooper shook his head. "If I disappear, it's over. I need to act normal. You finish this." Rebecca grabbed his arm. Why help me, really?" His eyes softened with regret. "Because I should have spoken up 3 years ago. Maybe your team would still be alive if I had." Then he pulled away, vanished into the crowd. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a secure message from her brother. "Shepard inspecting PX tomorrow. Looking for you. Maintain cover or extract." She showed Frank, his jaw tightened. "He's closing in." "Yes," she whispered, staring at the flash drive that now felt like it was burning her pocket. "And we're running out of time." Why did the message come so fast? Rebecca sat at Frank's kitchen table, the flash drive in her hand, Ghost curled on the floor at her feet. The dog's ears twitched at every distant sound, mirroring her own tension. The house smelled faintly of gun oil and black coffee, the kind of place where habits never retired. Frank stood at the counter, methodically cleaning a Glock. He didn't ask questions. He let her sit there, staring at the drive like it was a fuse waiting to burn. Finally, she slid it across the table. "We need to see what's on it." Frank took the drive, plugged it into a secure laptop. He moved with the ease of a man who had done this kind of thing in the shadows for decades. Password prompt. He typed Damascus 2022. The files opened. Shipment manifests, discrepancies in weights, routes. Cooper wasn't lying, Rebecca murmured. Financial transfers next. Shell companies leading to Axiom. Payments in amounts no legitimate contract could explain. Then the communications. Encrypted but damning even in fragments. Shepard's name. References to special packages routed through the PX. Mentions of international partners. Frank leaned back, exhaling through his nose. It's enough to bury him. Rebecca shook her head. It's enough to accuse him, not enough to survive the politics. Men like Shepard don't fall on one leak. We need him caught in the act. Frank studied her. That's dangerous thinking. It's the only thinking that ends this. Before he could respond, her satellite phone vibrated. She read the message and felt her stomach drop. Cooper found dead outside Axiom headquarters. Apparent suicide. Her breath left her in a slow exhale. She closed her eyes. For a moment, she just listened to Ghost's steady breathing on the floor, anchoring her. "They killed him," she whispered. Frank's jaw clenched, loose ends. She nodded, eyes burning though no tears came. Cooper had been complicit, compromised, broken, but he had tried at the end to make it right. And now he was gone, erased like the others. The phone buzzed again. Another message. Shepard requesting PX employee records. Cover compromised. Extract now. Rebecca showed it to Frank. His face hardened instantly. "We're out of time." He was already moving, gathering gear. "Pack light. Weapons, comms, bare essentials. We need to be mobile." Rebecca strapped on her ankle holster, slid the ceramic knife into place, checked her pistol's magazine. Each click was a reminder. She wasn't hiding anymore. Frank tossed her a spare rifle, compact and suppressed. "From a friend," he said. Rebecca caught it, feeling the weight settle against her shoulder. "From here on," Frank said evenly, "we're at war." Night fell over Fort Bragg like a shroud. Frank's modest ranch house had transformed into a command post. Maps covered the walls, timelines, delivery routes, photographs printed and tacked under red thread. Rebecca stood before them, tracing connections with her finger. "According to Cooper's files," she said, "the next shipment was supposed to arrive in 3 days. Frank checked his secure phone. "Not anymore. They've moved it up tomorrow night. They're accelerating." Rebecca's pulse quickened. "They're spooked. Cooper's death wasn't enough. They want this finished." "And the shipment?" Frank asked. She pointed to the schedule. "Athena systems. Surveillance tech that can penetrate secure networks. It's what they used in Syria, only more advanced. If it leaves Fort Bragg, we may never see it again." Frank set down his weapon, the steel in his voice cutting through the quiet. "Then we don't let it leave." Rebecca nodded. "We catch Shepard in the act." He studied her for a long moment. "You're playing a dangerous game, Winters." She met his gaze without flinching. "It's the only game left." The following night, Rebecca wore the uniform of a maintenance contractor, ID badge forged by Frank's contacts. It wouldn't hold up under close inspection, but she only needed it to get through the perimeter. Frank and 2 of his former teammates, Rodriguez and Carter, were in position outside. Their voices came steady over encrypted earpieces. "Perimeter secure," Frank reported. "Rodriguez has eyes on the dock. Carter's watching the main entrance. 20 minutes until patrol." Rebecca moved silently through the PX, the after-hours silence amplifying every creak of the floor. The building smelled of dust and disinfectant, but underneath, something colder. A waiting presence. She reached the office door, hand on the handle. The lights blazed to life. She froze, vision adjusting. Sean Mercer stood in the center of the room, 4 Axiom men fanned out around him, weapons raised, red dot on her chest, sniper coverage. Mercer smiled, cold and cruel. "Welcome back, Lieutenant Winters." His drawl stretched her name like a dare. Or should I say, welcome home? Rebecca's mind raced. 5 men here, more outside, comms likely jammed. Her cover was ash. She lifted her chin, calm, controlled. "How did you know I'd be here?" Mercer tilted his head. "Cooper told us before his accident about your meeting, about the evidence." Rebecca's jaw tightened. So Cooper hadn't just died, he'd been broken before the end. Mercer nodded to his men. "Hands where we can see them. Colonel Shepard's eager to talk to you." Rebecca raised her hand slowly, but her mind was already calculating. She knew what capture meant: transport, interrogation, disappearance. Better to act now. Mercer stepped closer with zip ties. "Turn around, nice and easy." Rebecca's muscles coiled. She dropped suddenly, pivoting hard, sweeping his legs. He fell, and she twisted his arm, slammed him face first to the ground, weapon ripping free. Gunfire erupted. She dragged Mercer's body into her grip, using him as a shield as she fired back. 1 Axiom man spun from a shot to the shoulder. Another collapsed with a chest wound. Bullets shredded the air. She dove behind a heavy desk, Mercer groaning as she shoved him aside. "Frank," she shouted into her comm, praying the signal cut through. "Ambush PX compromised." Smoke grenade, pin pulled, she hurled it. Thick clouds filled the space, choking vision. Coughed curses. Rebecca vaulted onto the desk, muscles burning, and launched upward. Fingers caught the edge of a ventilation grate. She wrenched it open and hauled herself inside. Bullets tore the ceiling where she had been seconds earlier. The duct rattled as she crawled, elbows scraping metal, lungs burning with smoke. Behind her, voices shouted orders. "She's in the vents, track her." The duct groaned under her weight. Bullets punched through, tearing metal. She forced herself forward, sweat soaking her shirt. She reached a vertical shaft, braced herself between walls, lowered silently. Below the loading dock, 2 Axiom men sweeping with flashlights. Her extraction point was gone. Rodriguez either captured or scattered. Carter wounded. Her watch read 8:43. Shepard was scheduled to arrive at 9. If she could survive 16 minutes, she might catch him. Her comm crackled faintly, Frank's voice, tense but alive. "Hold position, Lieutenant, we're coming for you." Relief surged through her, but she kept it buried. Mercer got at least 5 inside, jamming comms. "Carter's hit, I'm above the dock." "Understood. Can you reach the manager's office?" She thought quickly. "Maybe if I backtrack." "Do it," Frank ordered. "I've got a plan." Rebecca crawled, heart pounding, until she dropped into the office. It was empty, quiet. She picked the lock on the bottom drawer. A metal box, combination lock, old green beret issue. She dialed numbers by instinct. 0591, the lock clicked open. Inside, a detonator, and a note in Frank's handwriting. "Northeast corner, electrical room, emergency only." Her pulse spiked. He'd planned this long before she'd arrived. "Package located," she whispered into comms. "Good," Frank's voice came back. "Shepard's convoy just passed the gate. 3 minutes. We need Mercer's men pulled off the dock before he arrives." Rebecca slipped into the hall, shadows stretching long. She never made it far. Through the glass windows she saw headlights, vehicles rumbling to the dock, Colonel Shepard stepping out, flanked by guards. Their eyes met across the distance. Recognition, shock, and then calculation. He reached for his weapon. Rebecca fired first, at the lights above. The room plunged into darkness. And she ran, heart hammering, toward the man who had betrayed her team, the man who thought she was dead. How do you stare into the eyes of the man who killed your family? Rebecca slid behind a row of stacked crates, heart pounding, smoke from shattered lights thick in the air. Outside, engines idled, headlights dead, voices barked orders into radios that weren't working. Shepard's convoy, Mercer's men scrambling. The chaos she'd created bought her seconds, not minutes. She steadied her breathing, rifle tucked close, finger grazing the trigger. She could hear him. Colonel Shepard. His voice was deeper than she remembered, but still precise, confident, commanding. "Find her, sweep the building, she's here." Her chest tightened. 3 years ago he had been her commander, the man whose orders she trusted without hesitation. His voice back then meant structure, clarity, safety. Now it meant betrayal, blood, graves in Syrian dirt. "Move," Shepard barked. Boots thundered across the dock. Rebecca adjusted her position. She had a shot. A clear silhouette of him, framed by shadows and fractured glass. A single trigger pull and it would be over. Her finger tightened, breath slowed. Then her training screamed back at her. Not yet. Too many witnesses. No extraction. No way to prove anything. Kill him here and they would bury the truth with her body. She exhaled through her nose, lowering the rifle by an inch. Self-control was a knife cutting her open from the inside. A shadow moved closer. Mercer, limping from where she'd thrown him earlier, rage boiling in his posture. "Shepard, she's inside. Took out 3 of my men." "Then finish it," Shepard snapped. "Bring me her body." Rebecca's pulse surged. He hadn't said capture. He had said body. Whatever chance there had been of him needing her alive was gone. Frank's voice cut faintly into her earpiece, distorted by static. "Winters, say the word. I can trigger the package." Her hand brushed the detonator in her pocket. If she pressed it now, half the dock would go up in flames. Shepard's convoy, the shipment, everything. But Frank's voice was faint, unreliable. Maybe he wasn't in position. Maybe it wouldn't work. And she wasn't ready to burn everything down. Not yet. She pushed deeper into the PX, weaving through corridors until she reached the old manager's office. She locked the door behind her, braced a chair under the handle. Her breaths came sharp, ragged. Ghost wasn't here to calm her. Only the silence. A click behind her. The cold weight of a pistol pressing into her spine. "Always were predictable," Shepard's voice murmured. She froze. The years had changed him. His hair streaked with gray, lines deeper in his face, but his eyes, still sharp, still calculating. He stepped around, weapon trained on her chest. Rebecca Winters, the ghost who couldn't stay buried. She forced steel into her voice. "Why?" His brow furrowed, amused by the simplicity of the question. "Why? Because the world doesn't reward loyalty, Lieutenant. It rewards leverage. You of all people should understand that." "You sold us out," she hissed. "Your own team." "You were assets," Shepard said flatly. "Expendable ones, but me. I had value, I had vision. And the men I work with now, they saw it too." Her throat burned with the scream she didn't allow. Instead, she met his eyes steadily. "Vision built on corpses." Shepard's smile was thin. "Corpses are the foundation of every empire. Ask history." Her finger twitched near her sidearm, but his pistol's muzzle didn't waver. He saw everything. He always had. "You want to know the real reason you survived?" Shepard asked softly. Rebecca's chest tightened. "I let you." The words struck harder than any bullet. "You think I didn't know you crawled out of that rubble, that you dragged yourself and that dog halfway across the desert?" He chuckled. "No, Lieutenant. I watched you on a satellite feed, bleeding, broken, and I let you live, because I wanted to see what you'd do, whether you'd crawl back into the machine or try to burn it." Her voice cracked with fury. "You." The door exploded inward. Frank barreled in, shotgun raised. Shepard pivoted instantly, firing. Frank dove, the shot missing by inches, pellets ripping the wall. Rebecca launched forward, slamming her shoulder into Shepard's arm. The pistol clattered across the floor. She grabbed his wrist, twisted hard. He countered with brutal strength, years of military training behind every move. They crashed into the desk, splintering wood. Frank raised his shotgun, but Mercer's voice roared from the hallway. "Drop it, old man, or I'll paint the walls with you." Frank froze, eyes flicking between Shepard and Rebecca, locked in struggle. Shepard grinned through clenched teeth. "Still fighting, Rebecca. That's what I admired. What made you useful?" She head-butted him, stars flashing in her vision, and ripped free. She scrambled for her sidearm, but he kicked it away, sliding across the floor. Mercer stepped in, weapon pressed to Frank's temple. End of the line. Rebecca's chest heaved, sweat dripping into her eyes. Trapped. Outnumbered. Shepard adjusting his sleeve calmly, as if the fight hadn't even winded him. "You'll come with us," Shepard said smoothly, "or he dies." Her hands trembled, but not from fear. Rage. Helpless, boiling rage. She looked at Frank. The faintest nod passed between them, a soldier's agreement. If it came to it, he was ready to die. Shepard caught it, smiled coldly. "You still think you can win this, but you've already lost." The sound came then, sirens. Military police vehicles screeching into the lot outside. Red and blue lights flashing through the shattered glass. Shepard's jaw tightened. "Mercer, move her." Rebecca acted. She lunged, grabbed the detonator, and slammed her thumb down. The building shook with a thunderous crack. The northeast corner erupted in fire, shrapnel tearing the air. Alarms blared, sprinklers hissing. Mercer stumbled, grip loosening on Frank. Rebecca surged forward, tackling him hard, driving his weapon away. They rolled, fists in fury, until Frank ripped the shotgun free and leveled it. "Enough," he barked. Mercer froze, chest heaving. But Shepard was gone. Smoke, fire, confusion. He had slipped into the chaos. Rebecca rose, coughing, fury clawing at her throat. She ran to the shattered window, scanning the lot, vehicles revering, engines roaring. One convoy pulling away, Shepard inside. She slammed her fist against the frame, pain shooting up her arm. Frank touched her shoulder, steadying. "He's gone." Her voice cracked. "I had him and I let him go." Frank shook his head. "No, you forced him into the open. That's the first step." Rebecca turned to him, eyes burning. "He said he let me live. He's been watching me this whole time." Frank's expression was grim. "Then that means he's afraid. Men like Shepard don't waste time watching ghosts unless they know the ghosts can hurt them." Outside, soldiers shouted, fire hoses roared, the building crumbling in flames. But Rebecca's mind was somewhere else. Shepard's words echoed in her skull. "I let you live." She clenched her fists, staring into the smoke. "Not anymore. How do you prove your innocence when the whole world has already decided you're guilty?" Rebecca sat in the back of Frank's rusted pickup truck, hood pulled low, smoke from the PX still etched into her hair and clothes. The night air was damp, heavy with the sound of sirens fatting behind them. Ghost pressed his head against her thigh, whining softly, sensing her spiraling heart. Frank drove in silence, headlights off along a back road only locals knew. His jaw was set, his hands gripping the wheel hard enough to pale the knuckles. Rebecca tried to steady her breathing, tried to stop replaying it. Shepard's pistol against her spine. Mercer's gun pressed to Frank's temple. Her own finger hovering on the trigger that could have ended it, ended him, right then. And then Shepard's words, the ones cutting deeper than any bullet, "I let you live." She pressed her palms into her eyes, willing herself to block it out. But the words stayed, branding themselves into her skull. The truck jolted over gravel as Frank turned down an unmarked road, weaving through a stand of pines. A hidden cabin came into view, lights dark, secluded in the woods. "This is it," he said, voice low. Rebecca followed him inside. The cabin smelled of cedar and dust, shelves lined with old survival manuals, a wood stove stacked with kindling. No power lines, no neighbors, safe for now. Frank locked the door behind them, then turned to her. "We need to talk." Rebecca slumped into a chair, Ghost curling at her feet. "He got away." "Of course he did," Frank said. Men like Shepard always do, but you forced his hand. You exposed him to people who weren't supposed to see him tonight. That's a win." She shook her head. "No, he'll twist it. He'll tell command I was behind the explosion, that I'm unstable, a rogue." Frank didn't answer. He didn't need to. Her words were the truth, and they both knew it. Her sat phone buzzed. She snatched it up, thumbed the secure line. The message was brief. "PX explosion linked to rogue female suspect. Colonel Shepard assisting investigation. Stay dark." Her stomach dropped. Shepard was already moving, already seizing control of the narrative. Frank watched her carefully. "That's what you expected, isn't it?" Rebecca's throat tightened. "I thought I was ready, but it's different seeing it written, seeing myself called rogue, a traitor." She rubbed her temples, a tremor in her voice. "I spent my life following orders, protecting the flag on my shoulder. Now my name's being dragged through mud, and the man who betrayed us is being called a hero." Frank sat across from her, leaning forward. "Then you do what soldiers do when the mission goes to hell. You adapt. You find another way to win." She looked at him, eyes raw. "Do you really believe I can?" He held her gaze steady. "You already have. You survived Syria. You walked back from the dead. That wasn't luck. That was choice." The words steadied her a little, but the doubt remained, gnawing at her ribs. Frank pulled a battered folder from his pack and slid it across the table. "I didn't want to show you this until you were ready, but tonight proved we don't have time." Rebecca opened it. Inside, photographs, a warehouse near Norfolk, satellite images of shipments moving through docks, faces, meetings. "This isn't just PX shipments," Frank said. "Shepard's been running something bigger, moving high-tech equipment through military ports, some of it experimental, some of it stolen." Rebecca frowned, flipping through the pages. "Why Norfolk?" "Naval access," Frank replied. "And if the chatter's right, the next shipment leaves U.S. soil in 6 days." She looked up sharply. "Destination?" "Undisclosed, but it's not Europe and it's not friendly." Rebecca's pulse quickened. This was the pattern, the larger plan behind the PX shipments. The technology that had tracked her team in Syria wasn't just being tested, it was being sold, weaponized. Her hands clenched around the file. "If it leaves the docks, it'll be used against American operators in the field. They'll be hunted the same way we were." Frank nodded grimly. "And Shepard will have blood on his hands again. But this time, no one will be left to crawl out of the rubble." Silence stretched, broken only by ghosts shifting at her feet. Rebecca closed the file, staring at the wood grain of the table. For a moment she felt small, crushed under the weight of it all. Her team gone, Cooper dead, Shepard painting her as the villain, the machine stacked against her. Her voice cracked. "What if I can't do it? What if this ends the same way Syria did?" Frank leaned forward, his hand firm on the table. "Then you fight anyway, because if you quit, he wins. And if you fall knowing you didn't let him write the last page." Rebecca swallowed hard, blinking back the heat in her eyes. She wanted to argue, to give voice to the exhaustion gnawing at her bones, but she saw the truth in his weathered face. He wasn't offering hope, he was offering resolve, and maybe that was enough. She stood, squaring her shoulders. "Then we go to Norfolk." Frank gave a single nod. "We'll need gear, contacts, and a way to slip through without Shepard knowing." Rebecca glanced at the file again. The photographs, the routes, the evidence, each piece a thread leading to Shepard's downfall. She whispered, more to herself than to him, "If I can't clear my name, I can still make sure his is burned." Ghost nudged her hand, warm nose pressing into her palm. She crouched, rubbing his scarred head, her voice softer. "We're not done yet." Outside the night was still, the forest quiet, but in Rebecca's chest something shifted. The fear was still there. The doubt was still there, but beneath it burned something harder. Not vengeance, not yet. Discipline, resolve. She turned back to Frank, the weight of choice settling into her bones. "We move at dawn." How do you disappear into the same machine that's hunting you? The city lights of Norfolk shimmered on the water, reflections broken by the steady churn of cargo ships pushing into the port. The smell of salt and diesel hung heavy in the air, mingling with the faint metallic tang of cranes grinding against steel containers. To most, it was the hum of commerce. To Rebecca, it was the heartbeat of betrayal. She sat in the passenger seat of a dented cargo van, hood pulled low, eyes sweeping every detail. Patterns, patrol shifts, blind spots. Years of training had taught her to see what most never noticed. Every guard who lingered too long on a cigarette. Every camera angled slightly off. Every door propped with something small enough to seem careless. Frank drove with both hands steady on the wheel. His old teammates, Rodriguez and Carter, rode in back among crates filled with tools and tarps. They had aged, sure, but in the way oak ages, scarred, hardened, immovable. The kind of men who didn't need convincing when Frank called. Rebecca finally spoke, voice low. Security's layered, base patrols every 20 minutes, dock security on their own cycle, different uniforms, different authority. Frank nodded. That means jurisdiction overlaps, which means gaps. Rodriguez leaned forward from the back, his voice gravel. That's where we slip in. Rebecca scanned the docks again. No, that's where we get caught if we're sloppy. She closed her eyes for a moment, building the map in her head. When she opened them, her voice was calm, decisive. We go in as port contractors. Badges look clean enough to pass a casual glance. Once inside, we split. Rodriguez, Carter, you handle distraction. Frank, you're with me. Frank arched a brow. What's the objective? Rebecca's jaw tightened. Evidence. We need something undeniable. Photos, manifests, faces, Shepard's face. Without it, all we have is suspicion. Carter tapped his rifle case. And if things go loud? Rebecca didn't hesitate. Then we get out alive. Nothing else matters. The plan unfolded with grim precision. They parked in the contractor lot, switched into reflective vests, clipped forged IDs to their chests. Rebecca adjusted her cap low over her eyes, aware of every camera. Her limp the ghost of Syria she buried under deliberate strides. Contractors didn't limp. They hurried, heads down, blending in. The guards at the first checkpoint barely looked at their badges, just waved them through, more interested in their phones than faces. It should have felt like a relief. Instead, it felt like a trap waiting to spring. Inside the docks, the scale dwarfed them. Containers stacked like giant bricks, painted with shipping codes from around the world. Forklifts roared. Cranes groaned. The sea slapped against hulls with the indifference of centuries. Rebecca kept her head down but her eyes wide. She spotted them fast, Axiom men. Not in uniform, but their posture betrayed them. Shepard's shadow army. They lingered near a cluster of containers marked with innocuous codes. Their gazes swept the crowd too often, too sharp. Target acquired, she whispered into comms. Container stack Delta 7, 6 men armed. Frank's quiet reply, copy, we'll circle wide. They moved, weaving through the controlled chaos of the docks, timing each step to noise and shadows. Finally, Rebecca and Frank reached a perch overlooking the container cluster. She raised binoculars, heart tightening. There he was, Colonel Shepard, standing tall among his hired men, wearing civilian clothes that did nothing to dull the authority radiating from him. He spoke with confidence, gesturing toward the containers. One man handed him a tablet. Shepard scanned it, nodded, and signed. Rebecca lowered the binoculars slowly. Her hands trembled. Frank's voice was steady. You've got him. She lifted her suppressed rifle, sight aligning with Shepard's chest. Her breath slowed, finger on the trigger. 3 pounds of pressure, that's all it would take. Justice, revenge, closure. She could end him here, end the nightmare, save lives. But she saw it again, the PX, the smoke, the headlines already blaming her. If Shepard fell here on American soil at the docks with her prints on the weapon, It wouldn't be his legacy destroyed. It would be hers, finally sealed as traitor. Her teeth clenched. She pulled her finger off the trigger, forced the rifle down. Frank studied her. Why didn't you take it? Rebecca's voice was raw. Because killing him isn't the mission. Not yet. They waited, watching as Shepard oversaw the loading of containers onto a cargo vessel. His men moved with practiced efficiency. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. The codes painted on the containers weren't random. They were layered, subtle markings that told insiders exactly what was inside. Athena Systems. She recognized the codes from Cooper's files. "This is it," she whispered. "The shipment, the same tech that found us in Syria." She snapped photos with a small camera, zooming in on Shepard, on the men, on the codes. Enough to raise questions, not enough to bury him. And then she saw something that froze her blood. One of the Axiom men turned, face catching the floodlight. Rebecca's breath hitched. "Jessica." The name slipped out before she could stop it. Frank glanced at her sharply. "What?" She blinked hard, refusing to believe it. Jessica Ramirez, weapons specialist, her teammate, dead in Syria. She had held her dog tags in shaking hands, had seen the body covered in dust and blood. She had mourned her. But there she was, alive, moving with Shepard's men, eyes cold, face hard. Rebecca's knees almost buckled. Frank's voice came sharp in her ear. "Winters, focus." But her mind reeled. Jessica, alive, and working with the man who had betrayed them. Jessica paused, scanning the docks as though sensing something. Her gaze swept across the containers, across the shadows, closer, closer. Rebecca ducked back, heart slamming against her ribs. Frank grabbed her shoulder. "Talk to me. What did you see?" Rebecca's voice cracked. "She's alive, Frank, Jessica, she's alive, and she's with Shepard." His face hardened, disbelief warring with the soldier's instinct to accept what was in front of him. "Then we've got a bigger problem than I thought." Rebecca pressed her hands against her head, struggling to breathe. "I buried her. I swore she was gone, and now." "Now she's standing with the enemy," Frank cut in, voice steady but grim. "Which means this isn't just about Shepard. It's about whatever brought her to his side." Below, Shepard's convoy moved. The containers were loaded, engines roared, the ship's horn bellowed. Rebecca forced herself upright, eyes burning. "If Jessica's alive, I have to know why." Frank studied her, then gave a slow nod. "Then we follow the shipment. Wherever it goes, she'll go too." Rebecca looked out over the docks, fists clenched. The image of Jessica's face burned into her mind. Her mission had just changed. It wasn't just about Shepard anymore. It was about betrayal deeper than she could have imagined. How do you prepare to see a ghost who shouldn't exist? The cargo ship cut through gray Atlantic swells, its steel hull groaning against waves that had carried secrets across centuries. Rebecca stood at the bow of a small fishing trawler trailing 2 miles behind, sea spray chilling her skin, binoculars pressed tight to her face. Shepard's vessel loomed ahead, stacked high with containers marked in the same coded sequence she had memorized. Frank emerged from the cabin, handing her a steaming cup of coffee. His weathered face was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of what neither of them had said aloud since Norfolk. "You haven't slept," he noted. Rebecca lowered the binoculars, jaw tight. "Neither have you." "Difference is," Frank said, "I've learned how to live with ghosts. You're still chasing yours." Rebecca stared at the horizon, voice thin. It wasn't just seeing her. It was seeing her with him, with Shepard. Frank leaned against the railing. "You need to be ready for the possibility that she's not the same Jessica you knew." Rebecca clenched her fists. "No, she's alive, which means she can be saved." "Or," Frank said carefully, "it means she chose him." The words stung. She wanted to reject them, wanted to cling to the memory of Jessica laughing around the campfire, teasing her about her stubbornness, swearing they'd get through Syria together. But the image of Jessica in Norfolk, cold-eyed, efficient, moving like one of Shepard's loyal soldiers, was just as vivid. Rebecca whispered to herself, almost like a prayer, "I need to hear it from her mouth." 3 nights later, under cover of darkness, they docked in Lisbon. Shepard's containers were unloaded, transferred to unmarked trucks under the watchful eyes of Axiom operatives. Rebecca, Frank, and Rodriguez shadowed them through winding streets, headlights dimmed, hearts pounding. The convoy stopped at a warehouse on the city's industrial edge. Floodlights glared against corrugated walls. Security was heavy, too heavy for a normal shipment. Shepard himself emerged from one of the vehicles, coat collar turned up against the night, expression unreadable. And then she appeared. Jessica Ramirez. Hair longer now, streaked darker but unmistakable. She walked beside Shepard, speaking to him in low tones, clipboard in hand like she'd been running his operation for years. She carried herself with authority, not as prisoner or pawn, but as partner. Rebecca's heart twisted painfully in her chest. Frank's voice was low in her ear. "That look on her face, that's not coerced, that's commitment." Rebecca shook her head violently. "No, it's something else, has to be. Maybe she's undercover, maybe he turned her, but she couldn't betray us." But deep down, Rebecca felt the crack in her conviction widening. They observed for hours, recording every detail. Trucks came and went. Containers opened under floodlights revealed equipment Rebecca had only seen in classified briefings: quantum processors, surveillance arrays, prototype drones. Technology that could cripple entire operations without firing a shot. "This is it," Rebecca whispered. "This is the pipeline." Frank nodded grimly, "And Jessica's at the heart of it." The plan formed quickly. Too risky to hit Shepard now, he was surrounded, fortified, but Jessica might be reachable. The following night, Rebecca went alone. Dressed in black, she slipped across the perimeter under the cover of rain, moving through shadows with a precision that felt both familiar and foreign. For 3 years she had tried to be invisible. Tonight she embraced what she had always been. She found Jessica outside the warehouse, alone, smoking a cigarette under the awning, her face caught in the glow of a single light. She looked older, sharper, but still her. Rebecca's chest tightened. Memories came in flashes. Jessica patching her wound in Syria. Jessica laughing with Ghost after training runs. Jessica whispering that they'd make it home together. Rebecca stepped out of the shadows. Jessica froze, cigarette halfway to her lips. Her eyes widened, disbelief cutting through the hardened mask. "Rebecca." Rebecca's throat tightened at the sound of her name on Jessica's lips. "You're alive," Jessica whispered. Rebecca gave a shaky smile. "So are you." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Rain pattered on steel. The air between them trembled with the weight of 3 years of silence. Rebecca finally spoke, voice breaking. "I thought you were dead. I buried you." Jessica dropped the cigarette, crushed it under her boot. Her voice was low, careful. "You should have left me there." The words cut deeper than any wound Rebecca had ever carried. "What?" she asked, voice raw. Jessica's eyes hardened again. "You don't understand. I chose this. Shepard saved me. When that ambush went down, I was left behind, written off. He found me, gave me a reason to keep fighting." Rebecca shook her head violently. "No, he used you. He killed our team, Jess. He sold us out." Jessica's jaw tightened. "Maybe, but he survived. He built something. And I was done being someone else's expendable asset. With him, I matter." Rebecca's breath caught. The woman in front of her wasn't the Jessica she remembered. She looked the same, sounded the same, but her soul felt foreign. "I came back for you," Rebecca whispered. "Even now, I still believe you're not like him." Jessica's face flickered just for a second, a crack, but then it was gone, replaced by steel. "You need to leave, Rebecca," she said coldly. "Before he finds you, if he does, I won't be able to save you." Rebecca's chest constricted. "Then whose side are you on?" Jessica's silence was the answer. Footsteps, voices approaching. Jessica's eyes darted toward the sound, then back to Rebecca. Urgency burned in her tone. Go, now. Rebecca hesitated, every muscle torn between staying and running. Jessica hissed, sharper this time. If you ever trusted me, Rebecca, leave. Rebecca vanished back into the shadows just as two Axiom men rounded the corner. Jessica lit another cigarette, posture casual, masking the storm inside. Rebecca ran until her lungs burned, until Frank's steady hand pulled her into cover. She collapsed against the wall, gasping, rain mixing with tears she hadn't realized were falling. Frank crouched beside her. What happened? Her voice was broken, barely audible. She's alive, but she's gone. Frank's eyes softened. He didn't say I told you so. He didn't have to. Rebecca wiped her face with trembling hands, staring back at the warehouse where Jessica stood, smoke curling into the night. Her mission had started with Shepard, but now it was about Jessica. And she didn't know which betrayal cut deeper. How do you finish a mission that was never supposed to exist? The storm broke over Lisbon the following night, rain hammering the docks, thunder rolling like artillery. Rebecca crouched beside Frank and Rodriguez in the shadows, water streaming down their faces, weapons slick in their hands. Across the yard, floodlights lit Shepard's warehouse like a stage, guards patrolling with rifles slung low, unaware of the storm inside waiting to break. Rebecca adjusted her earpiece, voice steady though her pulse thundered. This is it. Once we move, there's no pulling back. Frank's voice was calm, grounding. Then we make it count. Rodriguez checked his rifle. About damn time. Rebecca's eyes fixed on the warehouse, on Shepard, on Jessica. She hadn't told Frank everything about their encounter, hadn't told him the tremor in Jessica's voice when she warned her to leave. That single flicker of hesitation lived in her chest like a fragile ember. Was it loyalty? Was it doubt? Or was she only fooling herself? Lightning split the sky. Thunder shook the ground. They moved. Frank and Rodriguez swept left, silencing guards with swift, precise strikes. Rebecca slipped through the service door, the silencer whispering twice as two Axiom men fell. The air inside was thick with machine oil and ozone, the hum of power flowing through crates of stolen technology. Voices echoed deeper in the warehouse. Shepard's, clear, commanding. Load the last unit. The ship sails within the hour. Rebecca followed the sound, boots silent on slick concrete. Her rifle was steady, but her heart slammed against her ribs. She rounded the corner and froze. Jessica stood at Shepard's side, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp, posture composed. She barked orders to the men loading crates, every inch the officer she had once been, but wearing Shepard's colors now. For a second, Rebecca saw them as they once were, side by side on patrol, sharing rations, whispering about life after deployment. Then thunder shook her back into the now. She raised her rifle. Jessica. The name tore through the warehouse like a gunshot. Every head turned, weapons snapped up. Jessica's eyes widened, shock, recognition, conflict all flashing in an instant. Rebecca. Shepard stepped forward, unflinching even with the barrel aimed at him. There she is, my ghost. His voice was mocking calm. I wondered if you'd crawl this far. Rebecca's hands trembled, but her aim didn't. This ends tonight. Shepard smiled thinly. No, tonight you die, for real this time. He nodded to Jessica. Take the shot. The order landed like a grenade between them. Jessica's hand hovered over her pistol, her eyes locked with Rebecca. Rain drummed the steel roof. The world seemed to hold its breath. Rebecca's voice cracked, raw with years of grief. Don't do this, Jess. Not after everything. You're not him. You never were. Jessica's jaw tightened, hands shaking on her weapon. Shepard's voice was a knife. Do it. Prove your loyalty. Rebecca took a step closer, lowering her rifle. Her chest ached with the weight of it. You don't have to prove anything. You already mattered to me, to all of us. You always did. For a heartbeat, Jessica's eyes flickered. The mask slipped. Pain broke through. Then chaos erupted. Frank's shotgun roared from the catwalk, dropping 2 guards. Rodriguez swept fire from the flank. Bullets tore through crates, sparks flying. Men shouted, scrambled for cover. Rebecca dove as gunfire shredded the air. Shepard retreated behind steel barriers, barking orders, returning fire with calm precision. Rebecca slid behind a crate, lungs burning. Jessica crouched across from her, weapon raised but not firing. Their eyes met through the storm of violence. Rebecca shouted above the gunfire, desperate, "Tell me why, Jess, why him?" Jessica's face twisted, pain warring with anger. "Because he didn't abandon me." The words slammed into Rebecca like a body blow. "I waited in that rubble," Jessica cried, voice cracking. "I waited for extraction that never came. You left me. He didn't. He pulled me out when you all walked away." Rebecca's throat closed. The truth cut deeper than betrayal. It was abandonment, even if unintended. The mission had moved, the team pulled back, chaos blurring who lived and who died. But for Jessica, there had been no difference. Rebecca's voice shook. "We thought you were gone. We thought, God, Jess, I thought I buried you." Tears burned her eyes, but Jessica's gaze was fire. "You buried me alive." Gunfire tore the moment apart. Frank shouted from above, "Winters, move." Shepard was retreating toward a side exit, carrying a hard case, the last unit, the heart of his shipment. Rebecca forced herself up, heart split between chasing him and reaching Jessica. Jessica raised her weapon, hand trembling. "If you follow him, you'll never come back." Rebecca met her eyes, voice steady despite the storm inside. "Then you'll have to shoot me." For a heartbeat, silence. Jessica's weapon shook. Her finger hovered, but the shot never came. Rebecca turned and ran. She sprinted through smoke and sparks, chasing Shepard down the corridor. The storm outside roared through broken windows, wind and rain whipping through. Shepard glanced back, fury flashing across his face. "You should have stayed dead." He raised his pistol, fired. Pain seared across Rebecca's shoulder, but she kept moving, blood hot against her arm. She launched forward, slamming into him. The case skidded across the floor, clattering into the shadows. They fought like 2 predators locked in the same cage. His fists were heavy, brutal, honed by decades of training. Hers were sharp, fast, desperate with the weight of everything lost. He pinned her against the wall, pistol pressing into her throat. "You don't get to win, not against me." Her vision blurred, edges going dark. She remembered Jessica's laugh, her team's faces, Frank's steady eyes, ghost scars, all the reasons she had crawled out of Syria alive. Her hand found the ceramic knife at her back. She drove it upward, fast and final. Shepard's eyes widened, shock, rage, then emptiness. He collapsed against her, then slid lifeless to the ground. Rebecca staggered back, chest heaving, blood mixing with rain on the concrete. She stared at his body, at the silence that followed years of nightmares. Frank and Rodriguez rushed in, weapons still raised, eyes wide. "Winters." She shook her head, voice hollow. "It's done." Rodriguez kicked Shepard's pistol away, checked the case. "We've got it, the tech, the proof." But Rebecca barely heard him. Her eyes drifted back through the smoke where Jessica had stood, but now she was gone. Vanished. Only the echo of her voice remained. "You buried me alive." Rebecca's knees buckled. Frank caught her, steadying her with hands that felt like stone and anchor all at once. "You did what you had to," he said. Her voice broke. "Did I?" Sirens wailed in the distance, Portuguese police drawn by the storm of violence. They had minutes, maybe less. Rodriguez slammed the case shut. Frank pulled Rebecca to her feet. They ran, fatting into the night, the storm swallowing them whole. Later in the safe house, Rebecca sat alone. Shoulder bandaged, body trembling, eyes fixed on the rain-slick window. Shepard was dead. The shipment was stopped. The evidence was secured. but Jessica was out there, alive, lost. Rebecca whispered into the silence, "I saved the mission, but I couldn't save her." Ghost rested his head on her lap, warm and steady, grounding her. Frank sat across, quiet. After a long silence, he spoke. "Sometimes victory isn't clean. Sometimes it costs more than it gives." Rebecca nodded faintly, voice soft but firm. "Then maybe it's not about victory. Maybe it's about dignity." Her eyes hardened, tears unshed but burning. Because sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The storm outside eased. Dawn crept over the horizon, and Rebecca, bloodied but unbroken, stared into the light, ready for whatever came next.